Welcome to the Heron Heads podcast. My name is Julio, and I'm joined today by a very special guest, ESPN writer, analyst, and reporter extraordinaire for the beautiful game and beyond, Luis Miguel Echegaray. Luis Miguel, thank you so much for joining us on the Heron Heads podcast, your first place for all things Inter Miami. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I think this is my debut for an Inter Miami based content podcast or show. So I'm excited. Thanks for having me.
An absolute pleasure for all of us. For those of you in the audience that are not familiar with Luis Miguel Echegaray, why don't you give us a little bit of your background, specifically as far as covering the MLS?
Yeah, sure. I'm a bit of a Swiss Army knife here at ESPN. I'm about to turn 1 year here, actually, because previously I was with CBS Sports, Sports Illustrated, Telemundo, The Guardian, Univision. So, ESPN is my dream home now. And as you mentioned, I've been covering MLS for a long time. Ever since I really started this career in this industry. And for ESPN, despite us not having the rights anymore, obviously I do a lot, and it's become even more emphatic now because of your beautiful club and the arrival of a certain Argentinian. So, for ESPN specifically, well, actually, to really begin everything, when I was at Sports Illustrated, Julio, I wrote a big feature on the foundation of the club when it just was about to arrive to the league, interviewing David Beckham and Jorge Mas and the team and stuff, and kind of created this piece that sort of was the very beginning of everything. And it's funny how now it's a 360 circle where now I'm basically covering Lionel Messi ever since his arrival. Even before his arrival, I wrote a feature about the city of Miami, Fort Lauderdale, South Florida, and how they were receiving Messi. So it was a very special feature for me. And then Messi arrived, and that's basically been a major part of everything I do here, aside from covering the Premier League, the Champions League, Europe, internationals, whatever. Inter Miami has now become a very big file in my proverbial cabinet. So very excited to do it.
Absolutely. Well, the excitement is matched down here without a doubt. There's more interest than ever in the club, which I think is so fantastic. We've never had a real following for the club that's been prevalent throughout the city. You get the little pockets of La Familia here and there, 1896, and you see it here and there. But now you go down every street and every bus stop is this proverbial Argentinian. We see him everywhere you go, and it's beautiful. I love it. I've been a fan of the sport for so long, and we always talk about the game growing in America and it's getting there, but I feel like this is such a push in the right direction, so much interest in the sport, and I think it's great. And as far as the impact that Messi has brought, have you ever seen anything like this as far as just interest? You see the ticket prices skyrocketing, viewership. It just feels like this is now kind of the center. And sure, we're not quite in NFL season and NBA's in off season, but have you ever seen anything like this?
No, I've never seen anything like this. And I'm somebody that can speak very strongly about this question because I'm Peruvian, but I was born and raised in England from the age of 12 years old. I left Peru when I was 12. And then I grew up in England from 12 until 23. And then I moved to the US then. So I've been here for now 20 plus years. I have lived in both coasts. I know Miami and South Florida really well. I have family there. So I know the landscape of the football culture in different continents and different cities everywhere. And I can tell you categorically, I've never seen anything like this, as you said. And it all began as soon as it was basically the official statement that he was coming. And to your point, how he's everywhere and you see pink everywhere. Of course, it helps when you also have the Barbie movie. So pink is really just everywhere, always. But no, I've never seen anything like this. And I think that part of the reason, aside from the fact that obviously he is the greatest player the game has ever seen, and now he's playing in South Florida, aside from that, it's also because of where he is. You know this better than me, but Miami, Fort Lauderdale, South Florida is so intricately connected to Latin American culture. It is the Latin American capital city of the world. There are stores all over the area that say we speak English, right? It's so fundamentally connected to anybody that's either Latin American or a son or a daughter of Latin American or a granddaughter or son of a Latin American. So Messi arriving to Miami is like Messi essentially is coming home. It's the closest to him going back to Rosario, Argentina. So that, I think that's also why it's so big. And you mentioned that, yes, the NFL is coming and the NBA, of course, and Miami itself is no stranger to superstars, right? LeBron and Dwayne Wade, and of course the Dolphins are getting better now, and then there was the Stanley Cup run as well. So, in terms of celebrities and athletes, they're not privy to it, but this is different. This is nothing like anybody understands. And I have friends who live in Miami and the local area who have never even paid attention to soccer, and now they're texting me like at 3 a.m. going, "Bro, did you see what Messi did?" And I'm like, "Of course I saw it. I reported." But they're like so into it, and obviously then there's the numbers, right? Where Inter Miami's social accounts, including Instagram, only the Warriors and the Lakers have more followers than Inter Miami now. The MLS season pass growth, the fact that the league has more notoriety, and it's a perfect combination of, because MLS is now alongside a partner of Apple, how this can just keep growing and growing and growing. It's why, Julio, I'm on SportsCenter at least twice a week. It's why, like my last segment on SportsCenter with my good friend Jay Harris, we started the show at noon with Inter Miami and Messi. Think about that for a second. SportsCenter, right? The staple of American daily news coverage, beginning the show at 12, like a very, very important time frame for us, with Inter Miami and Messi. And I'm going to be doing it all over again on Sunday and continuing for the rest of the season and beyond. So sorry for the long answer, but yes, I have never seen anything like this. It's unbelievable.
It's beautiful. It's appointment television. I mean, and I think soccer's always been amazing in the build-up, because you get 1, maybe 2 games a week. So there's always this, you're looking forward, you're looking ahead, and it just creates this sense of, okay, we're going to get to Saturday and it's this whole show, and it's just amazing. And speaking of appointment television, so Messi gets announced that he's going to be doing his first press conference post-match, and ESPN calls you up, your bosses call you up and say, hey, we want you there following the presser to do the interview. Just walk me through that experience of you having the opportunity to speak one-on-one with the greatest player of all time.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was the highlight of my career, alongside my chat with Unai Emery, Aston Villa's manager. Everybody knows I'm a lifelong Villa fan, but no, talking to Messi exclusively was the highlight of my career. It was one of the most incredible moments of my life. And I'm very honored that I did it with ESPN, and it was an absolute pleasure and joy to work with the club as well and the league to make this happen. And yeah, it's, funny. It's a funny story, because it was a project in the making that kept stalling because of the Inter Miami's continued successful run in the League's Cup. I was meant to, at first I was getting word from like my colleagues here and my bosses saying, just get ready to maybe fly down to DRV Pink Stadium in Fort Lauderdale for a one-on-one. They didn't say the name, obviously. It was just like for an exclusive one-on-one. They didn't want to say the name or anything, but obviously, with all due respect to other teammates, I wasn't flying down there to chat to Robbie Taylor exclusively. It was going to be, Messi. So I was already getting ready. But that was like 2 weeks before it actually happened. Then it got canceled because of Inter Miami's win against, I want to say Charlotte, because then they had to travel to Philadelphia. That's right. And so, Philadelphia was like, okay, now I think it might happen on this day. And so I got a ticket. I was getting ready. I had to call my wife to make sure we planned, because I only packed accordingly for one trip. But then it got canceled again. So it was just like this stalling and stalling. Still no actual name, word of the actual name. And then finally it happened and it was a very quick, because I was coming back from Philly back to NYC. I live in New York City. And then they were like, all right, you need to be here by this time for the press conference. And so it was like less than 24 hours I remember on my way to to Philadelphia Union Stadium in the Uber, having to like change my flight, like, and needed like cell service of my laptop, like just everything was just madness. So I take a very early flight on that Thursday, land in Fort Lauderdale, and then I have like an hour to get ready, go to DRV Pink Stadium. And I don't know if, I think you, obviously you might know this, but people don't know, it's like just before the press conference, a massive like storm happened, like huge, like, so people were scrambling to get in the stadium or whatever. But anyway, we entered DRV Pink Stadium, and obviously there's a commotion. Everybody's there for the big press conference, but I'm not there. I have to go to a separate room to prepare. So there was myself and my colleagues from ESPN and ESPN Argentina, who were wonderful, who continue to do amazing coverage as well. And, you know, I'm sitting there, and then he walks in. And it's not a long interview. It's obviously he has a lot to do, but so every single second with Messi, it's you need to cherish it and make sure you use it to the best of your advantage. And at the same time, I have to remind myself that I am a professional and I'm not just like a football fan. So I have to like calm down. So the, you know, so the Peruvian in me is like saying like, shut up, just like contain yourself. Then he sits down, and obviously my first question had nothing to do about Inter Miami, really. Well, it did, but not on the pitch. It was more about his happiness, and he gives a great answer. He's so small and delicate looking, which is amazing because he enters the pitch and he makes people twice his height look like middle school kids. And his answers are very deep and contextual and have a lot of thought and prominence. And then so the interview goes quick. We shake hands, we say goodbye. I tell him that I'm a lifelong Villa fan. He tells me to say hello to Dibu Martinez, which is hilarious. Then he leaves. And then the first text, obviously my phone is just like going nuts. And my wife is the first person that texts me. And she's like, oh my God, tell me everything other to go. And then I reply, and I'm like, because I'm in this existential moment right now. And I reply to her and I say, I think I just talked to Messi. I'm not quite positive. Like, it didn't feel real for like, I gotta be honest with you, man. Like, for like 2 days, it didn't feel real. Like, I was like, so I had to like go onto YouTube and digital to see like, oh yeah, that's me talking to Messi. And I know that as a professional in this business, we're very professional. And if you see the interview, obviously, you know, it's all about, you know, getting the right conversation going. But we're also football fans, and we're also lovers of this game. And we have to understand that like I was sitting this close to the greatest player the game has ever seen. I don't care what anybody tells me, he is. And it's a moment that comes out of hard work, because I worked very hard to get to where I am, but at the same time of gratitude, understanding that if you work very hard, if you do the right thing, if you are respectful and show your hustle and show that you're willing, if they want you there at 7, you're there at 6:30. And if they want to, if they require you until 8 p.m., you're there until 10. My point is, when you work hard and you do the right things, good things will happen. And I think this interview was proven of that, because I have a very good relationship with the club, with the league, and I work very hard to make this happen. And I'm not the only one. Many people out there do this as well. So again, sorry for the long answer, but it is the greatest moment of my professional career, and forever it will remain in my memory.
Yeah, I can only imagine the composure necessary to even just get the questions out correctly, and
and when you're Latino, Julio, composure is tough. Like,
I know it. The aura, his self-awareness almost stuck out to me so much during that press conference. His humility, his understanding that people are nervous when they speak to him, understandably so. Especially like you said, we're fans of the game. If you're reporting, especially for Inter Miami locally, you're somewhat interested in the sport. And I remember during the press conference, something that stuck out to me so much. There was a reporter who fumbled around with her questioning a little bit, and he couldn't quite find her in the room. And then, you know, he asked, you know, where is she? And made eye contact, gave her like such a warm, welcoming smile, and sort of just eased the tension as I'm a human too. I get it, you know, and then let's just talk about the question that you have. And I thought that was such a beautiful moment, like such a human moment. And it takes you out of Messi's the greatest of all time to he's also a person. And I find that he does that so effortlessly. It's it's almost like he's elegant on and off the pitch. I don't know.
Yeah.
I find it so amazing that every time you see him, that's something that I don't follow PSG too closely. I'm obviously aware of their exploits, but I didn't watch the press conferences post match. Not that he does too many, but that stuck out to me so much. And as far as the results on the pitch, just ridiculous. I This is as much of a team sport as I think there is on the planet. And when you consider that Inter Miami was one of, if not the worst team in the league, they signed Messi, they signed Busquets, Alba. You get some young South American talent, Diego Gomez, Facundo Farias, Toto Aviles. They've gone now, since Messi's joined and since all these pieces have joined, on a 10-game unbeaten run, including the most recent draw against Nashville. Have you ever seen... It feels like... And again, not to harp on have you ever seen anything like this, because it's all unreal. It's all surreal. But it seems like all the players have elevated, that he has lifted everyone to a different level, to closer to their ceilings. Have you ever seen such an impact from one individual player on the pitch?
I mean, I think when you look at the history of the game, obviously there are players that you can refer to, like the likes of Diego Maradona, Pelé, Van Basten, all these amazing players that do the unthinkable, and then they go along, and then everybody else goes along for the ride. And then, most notably later in Cristiano Ronaldo, of course, one of my favorite evers in Ronaldo Phenomenal, as well, and the Brazilians. But this is different. This is a completely different thing for a few reasons. One, we need to remember that, like you said, before Messi arrived, Inter Miami were the worst team in the league. They weren't just average. They weren't just bad. They were the worst team in the league. Only 5 wins in the season before he arrived. They couldn't score if the goal was even open for them. There was no identity. There was no confidence. And listen, Lionel Messi obviously is the number one most notable reason why this is happening, but a lot of credit needs to go to Tata Martino, because I think he understood the significance of the moment, and at the very same time, he understood the best way to balance the other 10 players around him to make sure that he succeeded. So a lot of credit goes to him. Of course, Sergio Busquets helps. Of course, Jordi Alba helps as well. But really, it's ultimately about Messi. And I remember DeAndre Yedlin talking about this, how Messi comes in and immediately he becomes one of the guys, and he's pushing everybody on. And also, wearing that armband means a lot something to Messi. He's not just like a superstar, he's the leader of this team. So regardless of his limitations with the English language or whatever, he just wants to make sure that everybody is on the same program. And it's an amazing thing. When you are a great player, not a good one, not a very good one, a great, and he is the greatest, not only are you now elevating yourself, you're elevating everybody around you. Michael Jordan did the same thing in the NBA, of course. So that's a massive thing. And it's incredible to me when I look at this squad. Benjamin Cremashi, to me, is the perfect example. This kid was playing youth before he arrived. Now he's his right-hand man. And now he's obviously got to call up to the USMNT camp. That's the Messi effect. It's not just him. Drake Callender, I think, should be
Unbelievable.
contesting Matt Turner for the goalkeeping role in the USMNT Cup. I think he's been incredible. Joseph Martinez has found a new sense of being, and so to speak. Kamal Miller played his heart out against Nashville SC last game. Everybody just feels confident. I think that's what happens when you bring a player of that magnitude. I always say this, whether you're an opponent or a teammate of a great player, and let's put Messi here, when you are an opponent of the greatest or a teammate of the greatest, there's 2 options for you. You either live up to the moment and say, I'm going to live up and raise my own expectations of what I can do because I'm with this person. Or the other option, I can fall flat and really surrender at the magnitude of what I'm seeing, which is what happened with Cruz Azul, Atlanta United, all these teams who are very good, they're decent. They looked awful in those first few games because they fell flat to what was in front of them. That's why Nashville SC did well to get that point last game, because they had already played them in the League Cup final, and they said to themselves, all right, we know what's up. Let's live up to the moment. So, again, I think that it's amazing to see a club completely elevate themselves because one player came in and said, listen, this is my level, then we all need to come up to the highs that we can be. Greatness is intoxicating. It's allergic. And well, it's either intoxicating and allergic and contagious, or it's the opposite. You fall flat to it. And I'm glad to see that the entire club is doing the former instead of the latter.
It's great, and I love seeing the youth players take everything in stride. It's like they probably had the starstruck moment, but as soon as Messi came in and became one of the guys, it was just like, oh, okay, he's amazing, but he's my teammate, and it's beautiful to watch. We don't know how long Messi's going to be playing, certainly not at this level. Father time inevitably will come. And what do you think beyond Messi's time at the club? What do you think the ripple effect will be? I guess specifically at Inter Miami, you mentioned Benjamin Kremaski, but all these young players, they're getting this invaluable experience right now. They're getting something that will be a timeless treasure in their lives. What's going to happen when Messi is no longer, at least on the pitch?
Well, the quality obviously probably won't be the same, but I think the pursuit of greatness needs to remain. I've always, and that's not just for Inter Miami. I think that's for the entire league. I've always said, like, listen, like, in order for MLS to be successful, in order for any club in the league to be successful, you need three things. One of them, obviously, you need great players, and Inter Miami have the greatest ever. So that's one box ticked. But the other two components need to continue to remain. And the second one is continue to develop academy products that can really be superstars, like follow the likes of FC Dallas, of course, who continue to follow to create so many amazing players like Ricardo Pepi, Jesus Ferreira, etc. So Inter Miami need to do the same thing. Like Benjamin Cremachi, like there needs to be more of him, right? Like, so that's the second component, because now you also become a transactional league where like other leagues around the world are looking at MLS and thinking, oh, we can purchase, because as much as you bring in, you need to be good enough to sell as well. So that needs to be the second. And then the third thing needs to be this continued diversity and pursuit of talent, not just the likes of Messi. I always use the example of Miguel Almiron and Atlanta United, how Miguel Almiron was relatively unknown by anybody in MLS until Tata Martino brought him in to Atlanta United, and 2 years later they won MLS Cup. So Inter Miami and the league need to continue to look for these like really good talented players, which they have. They have a lot of talent, but find those gems as well that nobody knows yet, and continue to elevate. If those three things can continue to happen, then that's fine. Because like you said, Messi's not going to be here forever. He's 36. I'm thinking that he probably will take that option and make it into a third year. But after that, like, you need to form a plan and cultivate a community of success as well, which is like what's happening as well. So, Miami Freedom Park, when it comes alive in 2025, that's a massive part of it as well. But use Messi's time now to build not just the present, but the future as well.
Yeah, I'm glad you touched on acquiring talent, international talent. We've seen, zooming out here a bit, we've seen, the Saudi League picking up all this talent. MLS has brought in tons of talent over the years, and it's always been almost kind of the joke, oh, the retirement league, and, Zlatan is going over, Rooney comes over, all these have-beens, quote-unquote, even though, they're still incredible. It feels like right now it's transitioning a little bit, and this is very heavily on the Saudi side, just with their expense in the transfer market. But it seems like parity has entered the chat. It feels like we're getting to a point where more leagues outside of the traditional 5 powerhouses of Europe are really starting to up their game and become more relevant in the global scene. How sustainable do you think this is for the other leagues, and what do you think it means for the sport in general?
Well, I'll answer that with what Messi said to me when I asked him, do you think MLS can reach the heights of the top European leagues? And he said it's up to MLS itself. And I think that question, I can answer to everything, including the Saudi Pro League as well, because I said it. I did a video for ESPN YouTube back when Benzema had just arrived to the Saudi Pro League. This is before Messi coming to MLS, of course. And I said, listen, attraction of getting big superstars, regardless of age, is always going to be something. It's always going to happen. Like, it's just always going to happen in some way, in order to not just gain some kind of credence on the pitch, but also notoriety for just regular fans. It's, at the end of the day, it's a league, but it's also a business. So you have to attract big names in order to continue to be relevant. That's why Cristiano Ronaldo went to the Saudi Pro League, to become the ambassador and the brand name as they continue to bring in other people from Europe. That's why Messi coming to Inter Miami elevates MLS and Apple's deal as well. So, it's important for these leagues to do that, but also leagues should also look at their own limitations and see, how can we make this better? Like, should we increase the salary cap? Should we try and get rid of, targeted allocation money and maybe turn it into something more productive? Should we allow clubs to be more flexible when it comes to transitional transfers as well as salary? So that's MLS perspective. From Saudi Pro League perspective, their big obstacle is rechanging the shifting narrative of their own culture, which is, like, I'm not trying to minimize anything or like patronize anything, but it's just a fact, right? And at the same time, just like I said, MLS clubs need to develop their own farm academy talent. Saudi Pro League teams need to make sure that they also develop their own young Saudi talents as well. It can't just be like, you're not going to have Ronaldos and Messis forever. It's just not going to happen, and it's not sustainable. So, and then there's the talk from an MLS perspective about, relegation. And I think that, listen, I think when you look at the likes of Luton Town in the Premier League, or the narratives that Wrexham has created recently, not just because of the owners and stuff, relegation, when thought about correctly, is the right way to go, because it's now creating this historical, cultural, and social economical channel of other clubs that can climb up. And USL has a very strong, hardcore driven fan base that can something be created there. And so I think that that's an important part of it, because come on, 9 teams make the playoffs, and that 9th team almost always has a terrible record. Like, that shouldn't be the case. So, and also there's a limitation on how many teams can allow to enter MLS, right? San Diego coming in and everything. So there's going to be a limit on that. So my point to all of this is this: how can success continue within MLS? And I believe that if these leagues, MLS, Saudi Pro League, all this stuff, look at their own limitations within their own regulations, say, how can we be better and be more evolved, then they can succeed. I think from an MLS standard, I think there's a serious need to just consider what the idea of relegation and promotion may look like.
Yeah, I get so many, now that there's more eyes on MLS and Inter Miami specifically, I get so many people from across the pond, from either pond, that comment, how are they not giving breaks for international break? It seems like MLS functions in their own lane. And yeah, I totally agree. I think they need to focus on what they're doing and understand how can we make our product as a whole better from top to bottom. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm looking forward to the future and beyond of the MLS. I think this is really a springboard. Everything that's happened over the past 2 months has really been a springboard for the league. And the league has been putting in tons of resources to this point, not to discredit them.
And I'll also just quickly add, the other component is that MLS, more so than any other professional soccer league in the men's side, pays a real close attention to the future, to Generation Z audiences and the younger. For example, when you want to watch a goal on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it, it's not geo-limited. Like, you can watch it from wherever you want. They're very good in terms of promoting their content socially. Now that Apple is obviously their main distributor, the way that they produce content is great. Those things are important, like, in order to be attractive to a younger audience. And I don't think sometimes the Premier League is my favorite league in the world. It's what I grew up with. I love it so much. It's where the lifelong club that I support is at. But I don't think they do a good enough job to really pay attention to the future and diversity of fan bases. MLS has a gold mine there, and they do a very good job. And I hope they continue to do a very good job at diversifying that as well. MLS and MLS Español as well. All those things are very important. So as long as that continues, that's key as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm really hoping that MLS is that the growth continues. I mean, I'm in the States and I found
Mm,
it much easier to follow the Premier League for so long. The Apple TV deal has helped tremendously because now I can watch every game. Before I was watching on, UPN 33 over here,
right.
the local broadcast with Ray Hudson, and it was fantastic. But if you weren't somewhere with an antenna, you were out of luck. And now that those little things help build the audience and help build that familiarization with the league, with the club, the attachment with these clubs. And that's so important because to me, that's the biggest gap between MLS and uh, you look at the English Premier League. You have some real diehard fan bases, obviously, in the MLS, but you go over there and it's just they live and breathe it, and you can feel it in the streets, and you feel it everywhere you go. There's banners all around. I think the more they can make it available to everyone, the better. And well, we'll leave it at that, I suppose, for the football. But I want to give the audience a little chance to get some inside Luis Miguel brain. I know you're a villain supporter. So how do you think they're going to fare in the Premier League? And we just had the Europa Conference League draw. How do you think they're going to do this year in Europe?
We're going to win the league. We're going to win the Conference League. We're going to win everything. Unai Emery is the greatest thing that's ever happened to the history of the game, and I love every single minute of it. No, I'm just I'm slightly.
That's the right answer.
Yeah. No, listen. Like I've been a fan of this club since I was since I arrived to England when I was 12 years old. I wrote an article about it when I was back on CBS. You can Google it about my story and stuff. So this is a club that I've known for a very long time now, 30 plus years and stuff. I'm in love with it so much, and and we've gone through some really difficult times. There was a period in not too long ago where we were, contemplating maybe we might even drop to League One, which is below the Championship. That's how bad we were. We were moments away from liquidation. This is and now the fact that we are in the Conference League again, European competition for the first time. We're in the group stages of European competition for the first time in 15 years, and we're a force to be reckoned with. And it all ends and begins with Unai Emery. So I'm very excited about it. And we have great talent, both domestic based. Our academy is incredible, as well as international talent. We did really well in the transfer window. Pau Torres, the Spanish center back, arriving. Musa Diaby, who's just an absolute rocket. And we just got Lenglet on loan from Barcelona. Maybe, hopefully, as I'm talking to you, it's the last day of the transfer window, so hopefully we'll get one more. But I'm feeling very, very good. We have Jonhader Duran, who came from MLS, Chicago Fire, who was playing for Envigado in Colombia as well. He scored his first European goal yesterday, 19 years old. So there's a lot to be excited about. I just hope that optimism is also met with realism as well, and understand that we're going to go through some tough times. So we're just going to make sure we stay always supportive, optimistic. But no, I'm very excited. I haven't been this excited since I was a teenager, and it's going to be great. So up the Villa, it's going to be amazing.
You mentioned that you moved to England at the age of 12 from Peru. So I love a good dish of ceviche. I get down with pisco sours. So Luis Miguel's had a long day. You get home. Do you want some nice Peruvian food, or do you want a lukewarm Guinness and some bangers and mash?
Well, I hate Guinness, so we can throw that one out the window. So no problem about that one. But I think that depends, one, where I am, two, the time of year. If it's the summer, you got to come home to a cevichito, una cusqueña, nice, relax. Maybe maybe if I'm in Miami or down in South Florida, it can be by the beach. The best Peruvian restaurant outside of Peru, by the way, I've been to is in Miami, North Beach, Locura Marina. It's tremendous. So it's all about the weather for me. But if it's like the winter and like I'm just coming out of Villa Park and I like a nice pint, perhaps of Kronenberg or something, and a Sunday roast. I like my Sunday roast. Google it if for those of you that don't know. And when I was in college, my dinner was baked beans on toast, which is a very quintessential English dinner, breakfast, or lunch. So yeah, I'm a weird cultural mix, but I like to mix them everywhere. I'm a real life Paddington Bear, basically.
All right, Luis Miguel. Well, we appreciate you so much for joining the show. Tell our fans where they can find you.
No, thank you so much. I mean, I'm on ESPN FC YouTube. I also do ESPN Deportes as well. A lot of commentary for the Premier League and stuff. I'm on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, LM Echegaray, or Instagram, Luis M. Echegaray as well. But yeah, anywhere, and Sports Center, my name is pretty unique. So if you Google me, you can pretty much find me anywhere you want.
All right, Luis. Well, thank you so much again for joining, and we'll catch you guys next time on the Heron Heads podcast, your first place for all things Inter Miami.
Thank you so much, brother.